Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 New Jersey Complete Street Summit. I'm John Carnegie, Executive Director of the Voorhees Transportation Center at the Blaustein School here at Rutgers University. Today's summit is the sixth one that we've convened, celebrating over 10 years of complete streets in New Jersey, the result in part of a very long and successful partnership between the Voorhees Transportation Center and New Jersey Department of Transportation. VTC is really pleased to have had the honor of organizing each of these biennial summits, and I'm excited to be here once again to welcome everyone to today's program. As many of you know, research consistently shows that many community and safety benefits are generated by complete streets, as well as major cost savings. These result from complete streets projects of all kinds. Even the smallest upgrade to our transportation infrastructure can dramatically improve safety and access for vulnerable users like pedestrians and cyclists. Complete streets also contribute to vibrant communities by helping to activate streets with people and giving residents and visitors safe and comfortable places to walk and bike. Over the past 2 years, we in New Brunswick have had the opportunity to see just how much potential is really waiting to be unlocked by changing the way we approach street design. A couple of examples: the conversion of George Street in downtown New Brunswick to a shared pedestrian space with outdoor dining and live music has been really important to sustaining area businesses throughout the pandemic and is now really contributing to new vibrancy downtown all the time. NJDOT and Middlesex County, the city of New Brunswick, have also recently completed a major road diet and a bike lane installation along Livingston Avenue. And that corridor runs past several school campuses. It's really been inspiring to see these transformative projects really gain momentum over time and interest by the communities and our residents as we adapt our streets to better meet the diverse needs of residents all across New Jersey. The pandemic and recent flooding have turned very many aspects of our lives upside down, and they've demonstrated really the importance too of the role infrastructure plays and the role our streets play, both as shared community spaces, but also essential arteries that support health and economic well-being of our communities, and the potential role they can play in supporting sustainability and resilience. As we adapt to the sort of new circumstances of 2021, the post-pandemic environment, and our travel behaviors are changing, other circumstances are changing, we really need to think about resilience and how to adapt our infrastructure to evolving needs. As an example, the switch to virtual meetings and remote work has certainly been one element of that challenge, and I'm very proud. It's inspiring to see that the work that the VTC team has done and our partners at NJDOT and Civic Collaborative in pulling together what will hopefully be a seamless conference today, bridging that gap to bring Complete Streets 2021 to you all virtually. So we have a jam-packed schedule today. The day will be full of sessions reflecting on progress made through Complete Streets projects throughout the state, throughout the years, as well as, I think, giving us a glimpse of what the future might hold in terms of complete streets. We'll hear about lessons learned from successful projects. We'll recognize those that have shown exemplary leadership. We'll discuss resources and strategies for getting complete streets policies adopted and projects approved in your local communities. And finally, our day will close out with a talk from one of the pioneers of complete streets in the United States, Barbara McCann from the Federal Highway Administration. So to get things started, I'd like to introduce Assistant Commissioner Mike Russo, who will be joining us via video. Mike has enjoyed a long and successful career at NJDOT. As Director of Division of Local Aid and Economic Development, he was able to prioritize efforts to spend a backlog of federal funds for bicycle and pedestrian projects that might otherwise have been lost. And now as Assistant Commissioner, he's directing NJDOT's Commitment to Communities program, which works directly with counties and municipalities to help them better prepare to apply for and spend federal grants to improve biking and walking. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Commissioner Mike Russo.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Russo, Assistant Commissioner of Planning, Multimodal, and Grants Administration at the New Jersey Department of Transportation. I'm pleased to welcome you to New Jersey's 6th Biennial Complete Streets Summit. I would like to start by thanking Elise Bremer Nye and the staff at DOT, as well as the staff at M. Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University, Civic Collaborative, and the members of the Complete Streets Summit Steering Committee for their tireless work to make this event possible. I would also like to extend my thanks to the many speakers who have agreed to share their insight and expertise with all of us at today's summit. I hope you will find today's panel sessions engaging and inspiring. It has been just over 10 years since the department passed our award-winning Complete Streets policy with the goal of ensuring our state's roads serve the needs of all users, of all ages, and all abilities. In the years since our adoption of the Complete Streets policy, the department has supported counties and municipalities in developing their own policies and implementing Complete Streets projects by providing funding, guidance documents, and training sessions throughout the state. We have also sponsored a Complete Streets Summit every 2 years and have recognized those of you who have championed and implemented Complete Streets projects in your communities. Since 2009, 169 towns and 8 counties have joined the Department of Transportation in passing and implementing their own Complete Streets policies, which have made local roads safer for everyone. In 2019, we renewed our commitment to Complete Streets by working with our partners to release a new Complete and Green Streets Model Policy Guide that follows the latest national trends. The guide not only sharpens the focus on adopting and implementing Complete Streets policies, but also demonstrates the ways in which stormwater management techniques can be incorporated into projects to improve the environment and reduce flooding. The guide promotes health, equity, and fairness in transportation expenditures and on-the-ground projects. We are distributing this model policy and guide in an effort to reach all New Jersey counties and municipalities, and we are confident it'll be instrumental in continuing to advance Complete Streets throughout the state. The department's #1 priority is to improve safety on all public roads. This is why the development of our recently released Strategic Highway Safety Plan was such a collaborative effort that engaged a broad group of safety stakeholders, including state, regional, county, and municipal governments, as well as academia, nonprofit agencies, advocacy groups, and private sector partners. The plan's vision is to achieve 0 deaths on all public roads in the state. And the continued implementation of Complete Streets policies and projects will help us reach this goal by providing safe, equitable access to transportation for all road users, including those who walk and bike, and especially our seniors, children, people with disabilities, and those who live in communities or areas not well served by transportation options. We are moving forward in other ways as well. NJDOT is currently working to update both our Complete Streets policy and our Complete Streets design guide, and we hope to be piloting new training in 2022. As we reflect on the last 10 years of Complete Streets in New Jersey, it is clear to me that the combined efforts of our department, county and local governments, the MPOs, TMAs, advocates, and other partners from around the state have resulted in transportation projects that have visibly improved the quality of life for New Jersey residents and visitors. It is also clear that we have made significant progress in advancing Complete Streets from concept to policy to practice. And as we look forward to the next 10 years and beyond, I am confident we will continue to work successfully toward building a statewide transportation system that safely accommodates all road users, whether they travel by car, foot, bicycle, or other modes. I thank you all for your time and dedication in implementing safe and sustainable ways to meet the needs of our residents and all users of our state's roads as they travel about our great state. I am grateful to you all for attending this summit and for the work you do to support this vision. Next, It is a privilege to introduce Commissioner Diane Gutierrez-Scacchetti, who will provide opening remarks for today's Complete Streets Summit and discuss the work being done by NJDOT to implement Complete Streets. Thank you and enjoy today's summit.
Good morning and welcome to the 2021 New Jersey Complete Streets Summit. I am extremely pleased that the New Jersey Department of Transportation is hosting this summit for the 6th time. What began in 2010 as a gathering of about 200 elected officials, planners, and engineers from throughout New Jersey has become a biennial tradition in our state. I am so happy to see so many of you who care passionately about transportation safety, mobility, and equity, and are working to carry this tradition forward. The Complete Streets movement in New Jersey is now more than a decade old. Over the last 11 years, we have seen it evolve from seeking to define what complete streets are and developing complete streets policies to integrating complete streets principles into our construction and maintenance practices. Throughout this process, we have also seen the ways in which complete streets have transformed communities across the state and improved the lives of people in those communities. Complete Streets has also supported the department's Commitment to Communities initiative, which seeks to improve the quality of life for everyone who uses New Jersey's transportation networks, regardless of age, ability, and socioeconomic background. At its core, Complete Streets is about creating a transportation system that safely accommodates all road users. However, the benefit of Complete Streets extends far beyond transportation safety. Complete Streets improve public health by encouraging greater physical activity and social connectivity. These policies help invigorate local economies by creating walkable downtowns and inviting public spaces. Complete and Green Streets incorporate green infrastructure and stormwater management techniques to support environmental goals. And Complete Streets promote equity by creating more complete transportation networks that benefit users regardless of income, ethnicity, ability, or other differences. NJDOT was one of the first state DOTs to adopt a Complete Streets policy in 2010. In addition to our award-winning state policy, 169 municipalities and 8 counties in New Jersey have adopted their own Complete Streets policies. More than half of the state's residents live in communities and counties that recognize the importance of designing roadways with everyone in mind. We encourage all municipalities and counties to adopt these policies and look forward to the day when everyone in New Jersey lives in a Complete Streets community. Complete Streets are more than just a means to move cars, buses, and trucks. They are also sidewalks, trails, and byways, places where people expect to take leisurely evening walks, ride their bikes to work, and meet up with friends in a safe environment. I hope that everyone attending this year's summit finds the sessions thought-provoking and engaging and are inspired to bring Complete Streets to your own communities. I am pleased that several sessions of this summit include DOT staff who will share how we can help you advance your goals. As we look forward to the next 10 years of Complete Streets in New Jersey, I am optimistic that we will find ways to further improve safety, accessibility, and equity. A special thank you to Assistant Commissioner Mike Russo and Elise Bremer Nye, our bicycle and pedestrian coordinator, for leading this effort and their teams that made this event so successful. I would also like to express my appreciation to all of our committed partners who have helped pull this event together. There are too many to name, but we appreciate each and every organization's contributions. Finally, I am grateful to all of you who support this vision and are working passionately to make it a reality. Thank you and have a wonderful summit.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. We at VTC are very grateful for the continued support of NJDOT in advancing safer, more accessible, and more equitable streets around the state. As many of you know, or you will learn today, if you're new to the topic, the concept of complete streets developed to help enable and improve access for all users, in particular pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit riders. However, in recent years, The concept has been expanded. You saw a little bit of that in the video we just saw, in Mike's comments as well. The concept is expanded to incorporate green infrastructure and stormwater management as our focus on sustainability and resilience sharpens. With more severe storms expected and increased flooding on the horizon, we really do need to consider how we can continue to adapt our policies to match the changing circumstances. And I'm glad that we have strong partners in DOT and DEP here in New Jersey to support that effort. To wrap up the introductory session here today, we're going to share a brief video that introduces the complete streets concept to anyone in the audience who may not be as familiar with the concept as those of you who have been involved for some time. And we're thrilled to see the growing interest in the topic continues, and I encourage everyone here today that is participating to share these concepts and resources with your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues. Together, we can build a more equitable and resilient transportation network that serves the changing needs of all users. So I'm happy to be here welcoming you. I will be here through parts of the day. And with that, we'd like to share this video with you.
Before complete streets, the issue with street design was the prioritization of moving cars instead of serving all roadway users, to the detriment of the safety of bicyclists, pedestrians, transit users, and others.
Most of our streets already accommodate drivers, but they don't all do a great job of accommodating people who don't drive.
There was a tendency to only look curb to curb, which usually meant you're only looking at motor vehicle traffic.
The Complete Streets movement is an acknowledgement that streets can not only move people, but that they serve many purposes and are the single greatest source of public space in our communities.
Complete streets will accommodate cars, but they will also safely accommodate people riding bicycles, people walking, people in wheelchairs, so on and so forth. Not only to walk along the street, but also to cross it.
We can look at local roads, connectors, arterials. We can look at rural, suburban, urban, but the overarching theme is keep people safe.
In many complete streets applications, we're also slowing down the traffic. And we know that speed is the #1 factor in crash severity. So I think the goals of complete streets are consistent with Vision Zero.
It also brings business in, revitalizes the downtowns, provides economic viability.
Often complete streets are first established in downtown business districts, and you get more people walking and bicycling to the downtown, you get more money spent downtown.
And that is attractive to a lot of people who are looking to buy or live in a particular community.
Complete Streets is more than just good street design. It's an approach and a way of thinking that considers all users in the context of the street and the role it fills.
Transportation is the one thing that we depend on every single day, all of us, whether we're waiting for a delivery or whether we're actually using it ourselves. So when you look at that and you think of all the things that have to coexist, right? They need to coexist safely. There needs to be opportunities for mobility for all of those users of various abilities. There needs to be accessibility. All of these things are competing for the same attention within that public right-of-way. And for years, the motor vehicle has always gotten the attention. And when you look at New Jersey, and you look at the density of New Jersey, and if you look at the diversity of the demographics of New Jersey, there has to be more room for more than just motor vehicles.
It's looking at roads and seeing their full potential and capitalizing on that opportunity. And that's not just something that's written down on a piece of paper or embedded into a master plan. It's something that is in everybody's thoughts, and it's a mindset. And that's what Complete Streets truly is.
New Jersey has had huge success with agencies and communities across the state becoming a part of the Complete Streets movement. Complete Streets has been integrated into all levels of planning across the state and has moved in tandem with other policy initiatives such as green streets, placemaking, health in all policies, and zero-death initiatives. The story of Complete Streets movement in New Jersey is about understanding and embracing an idea, establishing its credibility through policy adoption and education, focusing efforts on implementation, and supporting the movement through promotion, technical assistance, and grant funding.
The number of Complete Streets policies that have been passed in the state to date is a testament to the desire for change.
Good morning. My name is Andy Swords, and I'm the Director of the Division of Statewide Planning at the New Jersey Department of Transportation. I am pleased to welcome you to New Jersey's 6th Complete Streets Summit. You have heard from our Commissioner and Assistant Commissioner, and I can tell you that what they have said is more than just talk. They are dedicated to making complete streets a guiding principle at DOT. My job is to guide the team under my leadership into making this a reality. This includes overseeing programs like the Safe Routes to School education and outreach component, local bicycle and pedestrian planning assistance, and the Transit Village Initiative. It involves updating and implementing the Strategic Highway Safety Plan and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. It includes executing a robust research program and working with partners all over the state. And it means reviewing every DOT project for compliance with the department's Complete Streets policy. This is the first panel of the day entitled Complete Streets in New Jersey, a 10-year look back. In this session, you will hear from a number of speakers who have been instrumental in Complete Streets efforts throughout the state over the past decade. Before we get started, please note that this session is being recorded. After the summit, the recordings of all the proceedings will be made available online. I hope you enjoy this panel and that you join us for the presentations today. With that said, I will now turn it over to our moderator, Laura Tortillo. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Next slide. How's everyone doing? So, I'm Laura Tortillo. I'm a planner, an advocate, and a lifelong street completer, and I'm delighted to be here to moderate this 10-year look back on complete streets in New Jersey. A lot has changed in 10 years. We all have a little less hair and maybe a little more gray, but once a zealous nut, always a zealous nut. So I have a question, a burning question for all of you today. Question is, how many bike lane ferries does it take to complete a street? That's a trick question. There's no such thing as a bike lane ferry. A lot of times when we're doing this work and we're engaging with community input, public input, a lot of the feelings in communities is like, they should do something about this. They should make our streets safer. They should, fix the potholes. They should give us bike lanes, whatever. But the truth is there is no they, we are they. And each of our panelists this morning are the champions and street completers who have worked hard over the last decade to really make a difference in New Jersey's policies, programs, and infrastructure. Next slide. Today's 9 panelists have agreed to condense the last 10 years of their work into a fast-paced, 5 minutes each story slam, highlighting impacts, partnerships, challenges, and wins. The contact slide is in your handout, so you can easily get in touch with Elise, Corinne, Peter, Tara, Cassidy, Christine, Alan, Debbie, and Jana. Dear panelists, remember you have 5 minutes. And just to keep you on time, we have a bike bell, which will sound at your final 30-second mark. Leanne, can we hear the bell? I think I just heard it. Great. When you hear that bell, it's time to wrap it up and introduce the person following you. This is an ambitious endeavor. Let's see how we do. Following all 9 stories, we'll open the floor up to your burning questions. I'm excited. Are we ready? Let's do this. We'll start with Elise Bremer from New Jersey Department of Transportation. Elise has worked both professionally and personally to make complete streets and safe routes to school the default in New Jersey. She knows firsthand that there's no such thing as a bike lane ferry. Or is there? Take it away, Elise.
Oh, Laura. Okay, 5 minutes. Good morning. I'm Elise Bremer, NJDOT Bike Ped Coordinator. I began my career at Monmouth County Planning Board, where I had the opportunity to attend a training on the very first New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. After 2 years, I moved on to a private engineering firm where I worked on DOT's statewide pedestrian safety study. In 2001, I was hired by the department to help reach Governor Whitman's goal of building 2,000 miles of bikeways. One of the first things I did at DOT was manage the contract for the new Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center at Rutgers University. I didn't know it at the time, but I was becoming, as Laura just said, a street completer. In 2003, we began to hear about some new concepts: complete streets and safe routes to school. The two are very closely related. The Federal Safe Routes to School program was established in 2005, and this was a new type of program for the department. In addition to funding things like sidewalks and bike paths, Safe Routes grants paid for things like sidewalks and bike paths, but also it paid for education encouragement programs like safety assemblies and bike rodeos. Eventually, we partnered with New Jersey's 8 TMAs and a new Safe Routes Resource Center to hire and train regional coordinators to work with local schools, run walk and bike to school events, and develop school travel plans. These photos are from an old presentation on DOT's Safe Routes to School urban demonstration program. I chose these pictures because they highlight not only the need for complete streets, but also the need to work with the people affected by our streets, no matter who they are. We met with students in Camden, Trenton, and Newark and walked through their school neighborhoods with them. We discussed what we saw on their route to school and how they thought it could be made better. Later, we presented all of this information to the school administration and the parents. On this particular day, we walked around Hawthorne Elementary in Newark with a group of 4th grade boys. They pointed out the wide, fast streets, the boarded up buildings, and the broken sidewalks. We asked what they would like their school neighborhood to look like, and they were surprised when we wrote down their answers. When they found out we were sending them to Mayor Booker, they wanted to sign the letter themselves. They had a lot to say, and we needed to hear it. This next photo is from our Complete Streets training at New Jersey DOT in 2010. Look how young everybody is. Is that you, Laura Tortillo? The department had just adopted our Complete Streets policy, and we were introducing the concept to our senior leadership. Bureau managers, division directors, and even assistant commissioners came to hear from national experts like Michael Ronkin, former Bike Ped Coordinator, Oregon DOT, and Michael Moole, who now is the Chief of Engineering at the County of Kauai. It was a heady time for all of us in bicycle and pedestrian programs. We were a very small office in the planning division, and to have all the important people in the room, especially from the engineering side, was very exciting. Now, granted, there were a lot of skeptics. I'm married to a traffic engineer, and I know what it means when they get that look in their eye and they cross their arms and they scrunch their faces. There was a lot of that, and we had some very spirited discussions at that first training. But a lot of people showed that they were willing to look at things in a new way. So fast forward to 2021, and we are meeting with people from those same DOT bureaus and divisions as we look to update our Complete Streets policy and design guidance. We are having the same spirited discussions, which is kind of what led me to choose this next photo. This is not New Jersey, but it could be. The picture was taken while we were visiting colleges with my daughter this summer. I attended Boston University for the first half of my college career. It's located on Commonwealth Avenue, which crosses Route 2 as it goes over Interstate 90 right in the middle of campus. And at some points you have to cross 6 lanes of traffic and the Green Line tracks. For a young Midwestern kid like me, it was intimidating. So imagine my surprise some 30 years later when I found bike lanes everywhere, protected bike lanes with rain gardens in them. I was taking a photo of this one when Emma asked, "Mom, what's that?" As the next slide shows, she was pointing at the ghost bike. You may never have seen one, but we have them in New Jersey. They are bicycles painted white, placed as memorials to people who've been killed while riding their bike. Most of them include information about the rider. This one had a photo of a young man. Christopher John Weigel passed away on December 6th, 2012, as a result of a crash on Commonwealth Avenue. He was biking to his photojournalism class at Boston University, and when the driver of a tractor trailer made a sudden right turn, resulting in a collision and Christopher's death. He was 23. I have friends and family who've been hit by drivers. Many of us do. Some of them are never the same, and some do not survive. I don't want to start this summit off on a sad note, but a lot of people are killed or seriously injured in New Jersey while walking or riding their bike. More than a third of all traffic deaths in this state are bicyclists or pedestrians. As we move forward into the next 10 years of complete streets in New Jersey, we need to remember why we are doing this work. We need to continue to listen to everyone, and we need to be as excited about updating our policies and designs as we were when the whole concept was new to us. There is still a lot of work to do, but if we keep talking and listening and working together, we can get there. So next, I believe I'm introducing Corinne.
Good morning. My name's Corinne Orlando, and I'm the Government Relations Director for the American Heart Association in New Jersey. The American Heart Association increased our engagement in advocating for complete streets policy several years ago. We recognize that advancing these policies could improve health by increasing opportunities for physical activity and access for places to safely be active. Complete streets policies improve safety for those who bike and walk recreationally, but when appropriate, it is also important to prioritize improving access to destinations such as schools, parks, and business districts where people, from neighborhoods where people live, to increase transportation options for those who don't drive. Studies show that people who live in walkable communities and neighborhoods generally get more physical activity each week and have a lower risk of developing diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, and certain cancers than those who live in neighborhoods that are less walkable. At a time when 70% of teens do not get enough physical activity daily, this is something that we can all get behind. But in particular, we see the need to focus on the many communities with low income and communities of color that have lacked well-maintained routes to parks and schools, roads, bike lanes, and sidewalks for decades. In many cases, they simply don't have transportation options at all. The same neighborhoods often experience higher rates of chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. We must make up for years of lost opportunities and make these neighborhoods a priority moving forward. When streets are set for everyone, we are all safer and healthier, as we are provided more opportunities to include physical activity in our daily routines. Instead of focusing solely on motor vehicles, our neighborhoods should be designed and built for the safety and health of all travelers, with streets built to share. The American Heart Association looks forward to continuing to work on these policies going forward. Thank you. And now I will turn it over to Peter.
Good morning. My name is Peter Bilton, and I'm a principal planner with the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. We're the federally authorized metropolitan planning organization for the 7 million people in the 13-county northern New Jersey region. But 10 years ago, I was in a different role. I was on the staff of the Voorhees Transportation Center that helped to organize the very first Complete Streets Summit. And I have a confession to make from that time. I didn't think we'd still be talking about complete streets today. I thought it could just be one of those trendy planning terms that would go by the wayside when the next big thing came along. But obviously I was wrong. The concept of complete streets really had staying power because it speaks to a real need to manage our streets for everyone. I wanted to tell you today about my neighbors to kind of illustrate that point. They're an elderly couple and they've lived in the neighborhood for a really long time, and they're in their 80s, and they're pretty healthy and active as far as these things go. But the husband of this couple has dementia, but living in a neighborhood with complete streets has helped them to stay in their home. They go for long walks on those familiar streets to stay healthy. And he has a friend who lives in the neighborhood a few blocks away who comes over to visit him often. And they sit on the porch and play cards. But this friend really can't walk anymore. And he uses a mobility device to get around, a powered wheelchair scooter. He can use the complete streets in the neighborhood to get from his house to his friend's house. And so you see, the complete streets are really a critical part of the quality of life of my neighbors. I'll bet you could probably think of lots of different examples like this where a complete street is essential for quality of life. A low-income family whose children have safe streets to walk to school, or a college student who maybe doesn't want or need a car, but they have bike lanes to take an e-scooter to class. Or maybe even an office worker like me who's now working from home for the first time, but can walk down to the convenience store to get bread or run an errand. So, I think that complete streets as a concept is here to stay, and we still have a long way to go. NJTPA is a small part of that, helping counties and municipalities to do work to help them figure out how to build complete streets. I want to tell you about two programs before I hand it off, are examples of projects that we've done to assist. Our Planning for Emerging Centers program provides consultant and staff support to municipalities to create integrated transportation and land use plans. And some of these cover multimodal circulation and complete streets. In 2019, we worked with the city of Hoboken to create a design and implementation plan that developed a street typology. Thank you, I forgot to say next. And here are some of the graphics from that. A street typology to help them plan out the future of their design and maintenance of their streets. And more recently, in Keyport, we completed a complete streets policy and implementation plan, which my colleague Keith Hamus will tell you more about this afternoon. In addition, we work with the Voorhees Transportation Center in Sustainable Jersey to provide the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program. Here are some images here from a previous project for that program. These are micro projects, so they're limited in scope and they help a municipality solve a problem or figure out a next step for complete streets on topics like a bicycle network, conceptual rendering as shown here from Red Bank, a demonstration project, or updating a complete streets policy to meet the latest NJDOT and Sustainable Jersey guidelines. You'll hear more about this program from Ann Heasley at Sustainable Jersey, also this afternoon at 2:30. I'm pleased to let you know that we're opening another round, the third round in this Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program. So you can learn more about that, and we'll be sharing it. There's also a download in your conference packet with information about that, and the application period opens on December 6th. Finally, an important partner in supporting municipalities and communities in complete streets are New Jersey's 8 transportation management associations. And I'm pleased to turn it over to Tara Shepard of Go 100 and TMA.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning, everyone. I am very happy to participate in this panel discussion, looking back over the past 10 years of complete streets in New Jersey, and to share a little bit about the role that TMAs play in advancing complete streets. The Transportation Management Associations, or TMAs, are nonprofit organizations that support safe and sustainable transportation for all users of the transportation network. Like many that are participating today, the TMAs have been partners in New Jersey's Complete Streets from the start. TMAs are funded by the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, New Jersey Transit, and the New Jersey Department of Transportation Safe Routes to School program to advance statewide goals. But the TMAs are uniquely positioned to help advance Complete Streets because all of our work is local. TMAs work with municipalities, law enforcement, employers, nonprofit organizations, and schools, all stakeholders who benefit when a community embraces Complete Streets. And the TMAs often serve as facilitators to bring those various stakeholders together toward a common goal. TMAs are available to assist communities to conduct walk audits, identify and apply for grant funding, host meetings of citizens groups, or simply help a community to make connections at the local, county, or state level. Every county and municipality in New Jersey is served by a TMA, and all of the assistance we provide is offered free of charge. This is particularly valuable when we think about the geographic diversity across the state. And as you'll see in the next slide, one thing that we know about Complete Streets is that they're not prescriptive. Each community must look at their environment and determine what makes a street or a road complete in their area. Complete streets are urban, like this photo, but they're also suburban. They can even be rural. In Hunterdon County, where I work, one municipality included horses and riders in their policy as users of the transportation network. As the old saying goes, all politics are local. And when it comes to Complete Streets, I think we can fairly say that all policies are local and that the TMAs can be great partners for any community looking to adopt or implement Complete Streets. Thanks for having me, and I would like to turn it over to Cassidy.
Thank you, Tara. I'm Cassidy Bolen, and I work for the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, which is the MPO for the Philadelphia region, including 4 New Jersey counties. And this panel is a good fit for me because I started full-time at DVRPC in 2011. So this panel is a good career retrospective for me as well. And when I first started, I worked on broad bike and ped plans that, were some of the first times that our planning partners were thinking about biking and walking and creating complete networks for these modes. And they focused on desire lines and where facilities would be nice. And there was less focus on feasibility, how a plan would actually get implemented, or the quality of the facilities that could actually be accommodated within the right-of-way. But since then, increasingly, we've focused on linking all of our planning efforts to project development and implementation. And this is important because as the MPO, we're not actually road owners, so we're not implementers, but we know that Complete Streets need, the fundamentals are that they are implemented. So as we focus on feasibility and paths to construction, we've looked for opportunities that are presented during regular activities for our road owners, things like regular resurfacing. This image here is an example from our work for and with Mercer County that deeply analyzed needs and opportunities for facilities on county roads and has led to projects being implemented through regular resurfacing, which is a great opportunity to put things in an ongoing way. Similarly, in Pennsylvania, we've worked with PennDOT and the counties and municipalities there to identify opportunities for adding bicycle facilities during their regular resurfacing projects and analyzing those opportunities ahead of the upcoming paving schedule. And we hope to model something similar in New Jersey in the coming years. Another way we've really begun focusing on paths to construction or implementation is in our plans creating quick build or tactical urbanism options, particularly in our Safe Routes to Transit projects, which is a whole program dedicated to assisting our partners to find ways to tee up projects for implementation. We've included quick build and tactical urbanism concepts as a way to help them do it in a low cost, quick way. Another relatively new advancement has been the creation of a whole program called Expo, or experimental pop-ups, that's dedicated to helping interested municipalities and counties do pop-up projects or tactical urbanism projects on their roads. And that's been really exciting to work on. And our most recent completed project for that has been in Collingswood, New Jersey. And a real tool that's been that has allowed us to tee up these projects and really examine feasibility has been the development and use of better data products. So if you go to the next slide, one of these has been our regional bicycle level of traffic stress analysis. This is a tool that rated all of our region's roads from 1 to 4 based on a couple of different data inputs, and allowed us to analyze things like where there are low stress islands, what are some of the important connections that are currently level of traffic stress 3s or 4s that, if they were improved and brought down to a 1 or a 2, could connect the most low stress islands. And this analysis that's shown on the map here is the most important connectivity priorities. So it allows us to look at and prioritize the ones that could make the biggest difference. Some of the other data products we have relied on as we've moved forward is a regional sidewalk inventory. This is the first time we've had information across our region about where sidewalks exist, and we're currently developing a couple of different projects to use that information to better inform how we move forward and construct more sidewalks in our region. And finally, we've really, I'll say, led the field in collecting bicycle and pedestrian count data. And this helps us as we look at individual projects, what demand is and where that demand is, but also helps us make the case that people are walking and biking and these facilities are important. And finally, as we move towards implementation, it's important to build buy-in. And we've really done this by increasingly having more discussion and coordination with all stakeholders and road owners on what is acceptable in our plans. So there's no point in putting a facility, even if it's really great, if someone says, I'm not going to implement that.
Ding, 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 ding.
We've done a lot to, increasingly make our plans as feasible and as implementable as possible. And then we've also really found the success in building buy-in through stressing safety. And of course, as Vision Zero has grown in popularity, understandably so, people really can relate to and buy into the idea of creating safer streets beyond just what might be morally correct to provide dignified ways to move around beyond just in a vehicle. And an example of that is in Trenton. We recently finished a Complete Streets Design Handbook and are now beginning a Vision Zero action plan. So you can very closely see how these things are related and how they really tie in and build on one another. So that has been our evolution, and we look forward to another 10 years. And now I'm going to turn it over to Christine.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I'm Christine Newman. I'm with AARP New Jersey. And the lens I'll be using for this conversation and the area I'm very encouraged about regarding complete streets is really that intersection with age-friendly, livable work and how complete streets can support older adults' ability to really stay and thrive in the communities they currently call home. One area of our organization's work where I see this really play out is in AARP's National Community Challenge Grant Program, where since the grant's inception, we've been able to support really a growing number of complete streets type projects focused on promoting age-friendly, livable, and inclusive communities really all across the country. So I'm going to use the balance of my time to highlight some of that exciting work happening here in New Jersey. And I'm sure most everyone joining today understands why this focus is so important to complete streets work particularly when we look at the demographics across all of our communities and really across the country. Today we have almost 50 million people age 65 plus, and that number is going to increase to about 73 million in just the next 9 years or so. So it's just so critical we're designing and planning our New Jersey communities now in a way that allows them to be safe and supportive lifelong homes. So we're really pleased at ARP to be able to offer our Challenge Grant program annually as a mechanism to help communities jumpstart some of that design and planning. So rapid fire here, the first picture on the top left, this was a Challenge Grant project in 2020 awarded to the Trenton Health Team. And it really was to set the stage for a citywide conversation about expanded bicycling programs and cycling infrastructure, but did it by piloting a bike share program that was geared, pardon the pun, toward older adults specifically in 3 locations in Trenton's West Ward. So this initiative is still ongoing, and it includes procuring bikes for each location, bike stations, but then also having bike safety workshops for older residents. And from those workshops, creating a map of safe bike routes. But really to see the focus be on older adults in the pilot to then inform how this bike sharing could work across the city was very exciting. The second example here comes from Teaneck, New Jersey in 2019. So Teaneck has an established age-friendly initiative already, and this grant actually built off of some initial work and feedback from community workshops in 2017 that were hosted by New Jersey Future and Teaneck's age-friendly movement. Again, where older adults were engaged in identifying specific intersections in their community for safety improvements and then actually building out recommendations. So our grant went to actually implement some of those ped safety improvements that came out of those community engagement sessions with older adults, and since have led to additional funds being secured to replicate improvements to other targeted locations in the community. Next slide, please. So my last 2 examples here of projects we've supported in New Jersey really focus on the connection between complete streets and these age-friendly domains of livability. So aspects of communities, both built and social environment that support older adults being able to thrive in their community. The top right picture here is from Bloomfield, New Jersey in 2018. That year, the community conducted a walk audit. And one recommendation that came out of that assessment was the Walk Bloomfield program, which the township partnered on with the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition to really establish some safe walking paths that participants can follow. We partnered on the addition of some really innovative job clocks. So these were 6 locations along the paths that added markers that allowed walkers to track their path between specific points of interest, specific landmarks in the town, and their total distance walk. So it was really, it was also incentivized by the town. So it was a way to support this culture of walking and walking as a safe mode of transportation for residents of any age in the township. And then lastly, the top left picture here is from the Metuchen Downtown Alliance and their 2020 ARP Challenge Grant. And this is for their new streetery. This really was one of the, to my knowledge, first full closed streets initiatives during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's focused on how street closures can support the domain of work and civic engagement and support the economic recovery of communities downtowns. So this is, again, an ongoing initiative for safe, socially distanced access to the downtown, and really was seen as a best practice example. It's been highlighted for other communities to adapt and move from. And so from my perspective, you know, just to wrap it up, one of the things I'm just so excited to see continue to gain speed for over the past several years and into the future is how we have some of these clear examples from communities across the state of addressing complete streets with a strategic lens focusing on older adults and these principles of age-friendly livability. So our communities can be great places to live at any age. And I'm going to turn it over to Alan.
Great. Thanks, Christine. Good morning. I'm Alan Huff with the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization, or SJTPO. So the biggest success stories in complete streets are pretty well known. In our part of South Jersey, Ocean City and Woodbine are commonly mentioned, but there's 565 municipalities in New Jersey and only a few dozen of these headliners. More often, jurisdictions have excellent staff putting in a great deal of effort, but are limited by targeted opposition, general lack of support, resources, or other barriers, but they still get important things done that don't make the headlines. One such example is the city of Vineland. Vineland was early to join the movement, adopting a complete streets policy in September of 2011. They immediately started looking at projects. They quickly identified Wood and Elmer streets, two opposing one-way streets that parallel Landis Avenue, which serves as the main street through downtown. Wood Street is shown on the left. The city was seeing high speeds on Elmer and Wood, and given the oversized lanes, particularly when parking was underutilized, drivers would create a second lane and treat the roads like raceways. This was translating to crashes and even a fatality. Through coordination among the planning, engineering, and health departments, funding was identified and bike lanes were added to both roadways, providing new, safer access, as well as narrowing the lanes and slowing traffic. Public opposition followed soon after construction. Opposition seemed focused on a view that it was a waste of money and that users didn't use the lanes properly, and that public opposition led to political opposition. That said, the bike lanes were effective, with an almost 20% crash reduction across the board in the 3 years after construction. However, public perception is difficult to overcome, and while other bike lane projects have not yet come to fruition, other complete streets efforts continued. Then the city sought to make corridor-wide improvements on Landis Avenue, shown on the right. This is a wide corridor, and it's the primary roadway serving downtown. This was a large project spanning many years, but staff were successful in incorporating bulb outs to narrow this once massive crossing distance, as well as including highly visible mid-block crossings, pedestrian-oriented streetscaping, and pedestrian signals. It also better articulates where the vehicles are supposed to be and narrows the travel lanes. In addition, redevelopment plans now include a variety of complete streets elements, including bike parking and a focus on pedestrian access. The city's been active in constructing and reconstructing missing or dilapidated sidewalks and designing roadways that are bike compatible for when formalizing bike lanes becomes more palatable. Next slide. In this map, you can see where these corridors are, with Landis in purple serving as the primary east-west corridor downtown, and Wood and Elmer in blue running parallel. In addition, there are other exciting opportunities that after many years appear to be moving forward. Since 2011 and earlier, many groups, including originally the Puerto Rican Action Committee, city staff, SJTPO, and others, have been working to make improvements to Chestnut Avenue, shown in green, including a road diet to this high-speed 4-lane roadway. With city staff from planning, engineering, and health, as well as some technical support through SJTPO, the city has done an excellent job of making the case to local organizations and residents about the benefits of dieting on this roadway, which is among the highest bicycle and pedestrian crash numbers of any local roadway in our region. I'm optimistic that the city's hard work is about to pay off. In addition, Park Avenue, shown in gray, is a 5-lane roadway north of downtown, which is also being discussed as another good opportunity for dieting. As you can see from this map, there are many people in Vineland who do not have access to a car, as many as 37% downtown. And in an area like ours, which really resembles much of the country, not having a car puts people at a real disadvantage. The reality is that the work and the projects that the city has done have really made life better for the people of Vineland, and the projects in the works and the work yet to come will continue to do so even more. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from cities like Vineland, where these things are really fought out in the trenches. First, developing a complete streets policy is important when you have that level of support, but it's one of many important tools in your toolbox. And if you can't get to it today, you still can advance complete streets in a variety of ways until you get there. Like all things in life, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Do the best you can today and preserve your ability, your support, and your sanity to do good work tomorrow. The people you work with today are probably the people you'll need next time, so make sure that your push is productive. Have good data. Even in 2021, when facts often feel like they don't matter, having good data that is easy to understand and probably visual is often key to changing the minds that matter. And good examples in places like your community are far more important than some ideal from a place that just doesn't fit your community's context. Lastly, partnerships and relationships are so important. In Vineland, like pretty much everywhere, the health department has been an invaluable partner. Identifying individuals and organizations in the community who care and are willing to support complete streets will pay dividends down the road. Thanks. I'll hand it over to Deb.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everybody. So I am Deb Kagan. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition. So the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition was formed at about the same time that the Complete Streets movement was taking off here in New Jersey. And it became clear that advocating for safe biking and walking meant advocating for complete streets. Advocates began making the case that streets can be designed and infrastructure built to make it safer for all users, not just for cars. And it also became clear there was a need for a statewide organization to represent the interests and amplify the efforts of local bike and ped advocates for safe streets. And so Complete Streets have been central to the work of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition from the start. We began to see pedestrian advisory committees and complete streets committees form, and each time a road project was proposed in a town that reflected the goals of complete streets, more and more people came to understand the need and the potential for designing streets that were safe for all users. As more and more towns passed complete street policies, the idea began to move beyond a small number of advocates to local community members. Our work with advocates saw a change in the conversation by making terms like safe streets, livable communities, complete streets, and road diets part of the community-wide conversation. Over this decade, we've seen a qualitative shift with the growing adoption of complete street policies, demonstration projects, pop-up bike lanes, road diets, bike ped master plans, and full complete street design and implementation. And now the introduction during COVID of all kinds of open streets, which some of the speakers had talked about. All these developments have made a real difference, providing living examples that are helping more and more people understand the need and the potential to make our streets safer and more livable. The photo on the bottom right that you can see, for instance, is a new plan, a partnership between the town of Caldwell and Essex County to bring complete streets to this county major arterial, Bloomfield Ave. Now, this used to be thought of a street that was completely off limits to this kind of change. So we can see really that things are really beginning to change that nobody thought would actually come about. To get a better picture of the evolution of complete streets on the ground, I wanted to share the story of one town, Asbury Park. Next. In 2016, community advocates began to address the long-standing dangers of Main Street in Asbury Park. This state-governed road, also known as Route 71, is a 4-lane highway running a mile in length through the downtown, built only to accommodate car traffic. In addition to the strip of highway, just about every intersecting street was also an expansive swath of pavement with virtually no markings or signage. Many businesses on Main Street are places of employment for residents of the city's west side, an underserved neighborhood of people who are highly dependent on bikes and walking for transportation. Route 71 served as a barrier to access for these residents. The NJDOT had proposed a road diet for Main Street, but the town council rejected it. It was based on concerns of traffic tie-ups and congestion. When local advocates invited the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition to a meeting about bike riders on the boardwalk, the discussion broadened to the need for a complete streets policy and the council's recent rejection of the Route 71 makeover. That meeting was the spark that launched a wave of local advocacy. Over the next year and a half, community advocates came together to campaign for a better Main Street, and the Asbury Park Complete Streets Coalition was formed. In June 2016, for months after organizing, the Asbury Park Coalition presented the City Council with a letter of support from 23 local businesses, 3 statewide advocacy groups, and a petition from over 400 residents, all in favor of building a better Main Street that would provide opportunities for economic progress and bridge gaps to underserved and minority communities. Their voices were finally heard. Today, the NJDOT-led Main Street project is now completed. The town hired a transportation manager and a bicycle and pedestrian plan was adopted. More bike lanes and other street infrastructure are being developed, and there is a popular new e-scooter share program. Thanks to the vision of complete streets and its adoption by local advocates, Asbury Park is on its way to becoming one of New Jersey's most forward-thinking bike and pedestrian-friendly cities. As we work statewide to build support, our understanding and definition of complete streets continues to evolve. Advocates have helped create and now have the new robust Complete and Green Streets model policy, which now incorporates a lens of equity to directly address our overburdened communities and communities of color, and includes the growing understanding how green infrastructure can help with mitigating the effects of climate change. We still have a great deal of work ahead to have a majority of implemented complete streets throughout the state. We have recently launched a pedestrian and bicycle advocacy network to help make a space to share best practices and build the community of advocates working on bringing complete streets to their local communities. The growing definition of what true complete streets should embrace and the dedication of so many to make this a reality on the ground gives us a vision of the great possibilities for the next decade. And now I'd like to turn the screen over to Jana.
Thank you so much. I am Jana Chernitz. I am the Deputy Director for Tri-State Transportation Campaign. In preparing for this panel, I started looking back at the 10 years that I have been at Tri-State and reading old blog posts with a certain sense of nostalgia, but from the perspective of lessons learned from 10 years of failures and successes. I know 10 years is not a long time, but go easy on me. I was a mid-ish life career changer and like really changed my career. Family law attorney turned mobility advocate. So this was a whole new world to me when I started. My foundation was from my own personal experiences as a runner, cyclist, hiker, public transit commuter, New Jersey resident, and interestingly enough, a legal services attorney in family and housing law in Cumberland and Salem counties. And I had to drive out to my clients because they didn't have the mobility options or abilities to get to my office to receive the dire life-changing legal assistance that they needed. I was somebody who wanted the most out of where I lived and recognizing that mobility was the key to a quality of life. Next slide, please. I started in Tri-State with Tri-State in 2011. At that point, NJDOT's Complete Streets policy was barely in its toddler stage, but it was still award-winning and groundbreaking. Yet the concepts of roads built for all users was nothing new. We know the first Complete Streets-like policy, as the term complete streets did not really make it into our lexicon until after 2003, thanks to the vision of Barbara McCann, who is a speaker here today, but it can be accredited to Oregon back in 1971. I found this really cool map that I wanted to share from Smart Growth America and National Complete Streets Coalition, showing the spread of complete streets across the United States from 2000 to 2020. And as we assemble here today, virtually, there are over 1,600 policies nationwide. And I'm proud to say that 11% of those policies are attributable to New Jersey. Next slide, please. In 2009, we had a strong policy moving across New Jersey, but as time passed, we were presented with both challenges and opportunities. With strength in numbers, advocates, elected officials, engineers and planners from both the public and private sector, NJDOT, TMAs, MPOs, so many acronyms, came together to form the Complete Streets Working Group. We were and still are a group of geeky yet cool folks who gather on a monthly basis, sit around a table, now virtually, and talk about all things complete streets. And at one point, we actually even had pizza. This might sound awfully familiar to Barbara McCann, who assembled the Complete Streets Task Force back in the early 2000s. And it sounds really weird to say early 2000s, but at least I didn't say late 1900s. I see those memes popping up and it just drives me crazy. But over the years, our little family of transportation nerds grew. We were joined by health advocates from American Heart Association, our equity partners at New Jersey Conservation Foundation, our smart growth friends from New Jersey Future, and Sustainable Jersey, just to name a few. We hunkered down together for over 3 years and created the model Complete and Great Streets policy. At times, we find ourselves at opposite sides of the table, agreeing on the same goal, but having a different vision of how to get there, but proving once again that a collaborative approach can result in innovation and progress. I am proud where New Jersey has come over the 10 years, and I'm even more excited about what lies ahead. We're not only building better communities for today, but laying the foundation for them to be stronger for tomorrow. I thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts and vision for the potential of Complete Streets New Jersey, and I'm looking forward to a productive and exciting Complete Streets Summit. So thank you, and I will yield it back to Laura, and I think I actually gave some extra minutes for Q&A.
You sure did, Jana. We are a couple minutes ahead of time. This is really great. Thank you all street completers and zealous nuts of all kinds. This went really well. I thought it was going to be quite a challenge to have everybody condense their 10 years into 5 minutes each, but man, there's a lot of information, and I'm so glad that that this is being recorded, because I want to go back and re-listen to everything. So I'm going to ask all our panelists to please turn their cameras back on and get ready for Q&A. But before, I just wanted to say a few thoughts that came into my mind as I was listening to everyone. I think it's fair to say that in the before times, you know, the pre-pandemic, we were very challenged to think of streets as public space. And the lockdown really catalyzed many communities to open their streets to people. Yet today, as we are opening back up and getting back to normal, it doesn't feel like it's in such a good way. I feel like we're going back to some old dysfunctional ways. And I don't want to do that. I want to feel like this lockdown and this change of mindset for all of us can really make a difference going forward. Just today, I was sent an article from the Harvard Law Review by Gregory Schill and Sarah Bronin on rewriting our nation's deadly traffic manuals. And it hit home. While our panelists shared so much today that we can celebrate, the underlying truth is that we have a really long way to go. So I want to open it up to questions, but before I do, I just want to make you aware that there have been a couple of links to some of the resources shared in our chat box. So if you want to see some of the things that our panelists were talking about, they provided some links in the chat box. I'm going to start with an easy question for our panelists, and I'm going to ask you just to volunteer yourselves to answer. How can we get better implementation of complete streets in New Jersey? Anybody want to field that one? Don't make it call on you.
I was actually typing this up as we were talking. I think we can get better implementation of complete streets if we got to get out of our silos and talk to each other. We have to be flexible. We have to stop pointing fingers. We have to find a way to yes. We had a focus group meeting with towns and counties on complete streets over the summer, and another one with New Jersey DOT staff. Both groups expressed frustration with the other group. And just like everything else these days, I think we need to lower the temperature and come together to have the hard conversations civilly, respectfully, or we will not succeed.
I love it. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I would love to piggyback on that. And from my perspective as an advocate, I think it's really important for residents to have their voices heard, to hear what they want out of their communities. I think it's much easier for decision makers, elected officials, and those who are actually charged with implementing these complete streets to see it through fruition if they know that's what their residents want. Sometimes people don't even know that there's an ability to talk and have their voices heard, and sometimes they don't even know what it is that they want, and that's our job as experts is to get them there. But you know, I think community input is invaluable in implementation.
And I'll add to Jana's comments. Sometimes I think it's difficult for residents to know how to sort of get that jump the leap between writing on a social media post or even just showing up to speak at a town council meeting. So I think that some of the examples that I've seen with advocacy that have been most helpful is when there is some type of a structure that's able to bridge that gap between the decision makers and the residents. And it comes in different forms. There's pedestrian advisory committees. There's new complete streets advisory committees that are beginning to grow up. I think that those structures that help us have a way to bring in that voice in a structured way to the people who have to make the decisions is a really helpful thing that some towns and cities are beginning to do. And it's been more effective, I think, in exactly amplifying that kind of residential voice.
Yeah.
And I'll build on that one level up to say, get the elected officials on record when people are running for various offices. Ask them what they think about these things. Leadership's so important. You need to have the council people, the mayor saying, yeah, I'm okay with that. Even I'm okay with that. Will do in some cases if you can't get enthusiastic support, but ask people where they stand. Ask them about these issues in elections so that you're stacking the deck in your favor.
And I'll put in another plug for the TMAs. I think oftentimes residents, there's a lot of good work that's happening in the community. Maybe it's happening at, maybe the school is working on sustainable Jersey certification, or maybe the school is involved in the Safe Routes to School program. Maybe their engineer is applying for a DOT grant for something, but because a particular resident or a little resident group doesn't know about that, they think nothing is happening. But in many cases, there is some grassroots efforts going on, but there's just not that connection within the community. And so I'll just, again, throw it out there that the TMAs tend to have our ears to the ground, and we work with all of those various stakeholders. So, when in doubt, reach out to your TMA and find out what may be going on in your community that you may not know about. And the TMA can connect you with some of that effort that's probably already underway.
We just had a project that kind of came in front of us this week, in a project that serves a very disadvantaged community with a lot of people who don't have access to a car, and did not include any kind of accommodations for non-vehicular users. And essentially the argument kind of comes back to, well, no one came out and said that they needed this. And so the implication there is that the default position is we don't include it unless, people come out and scream about it. And it's bad when that's the case anywhere, but it's especially bad when that's the case in a disadvantaged community where people don't feel empowered to speak up and they, do not have access to a car. Just makes it that much more egregious. So, kind of assembling all of the pieces that were just talked about, but that's what happens when those pieces don't come together.
I'd like to put in a plug for the growing, it seems like the growing importance of demonstration projects, temporary trials. We've been at the NJTPA have been including that in some of our consultant-led projects. I know that DVRPC, Cassidy was talking about that program that they've been taking leadership and supporting. I think it does a couple different things. It helps to show people what they're missing, right? Like getting back to what Laura was saying about street closures during COVID-19, they're supporting local business, they're supporting people's quality of life and having a place to go. In the town where I live, there was a street closure and picnic tables and umbrellas and benches, and a few people in the town complained because they can't drive through that street anymore. But the Downtown Business Association and the majority of residents are like, you're gonna pull that out, you're gonna replace the through street, out of my cold dead hands. And so it shows them where the opportunities are, and builds resident support, whereas formerly a municipality or county might have only heard from the people on that street. If the only people they hear from are the people who are going to lose a parking space because they're putting in a bike lane, then they're not hearing the whole picture, right? That can show the benefits to broader community. And the second thing gets to what Elise was saying. It helps to bridge that gap between longer term planning goals and the short term engineering requirements that are often disconnected. And so being able to show that what type of infrastructure is possible, what type of even doing a demonstration can help bring those two together better. So thanks.
Thank you. That was a very robust answer to that question. But Peter, your answer makes me think of this question that just came in on tips for talking to people who feel that their roads are already complete as is. And there was another question that came in. What good example, is there a good example of how we're getting communities to adopt complete and green street policies and move towards implementation? Because it seems like there's this level of convincing first and seeing the world differently, that we don't have to live like we have been, that we can live in a better way. Anybody want to talk about that, about like that change from no, we're not doing anything different to yes, we embrace complete and green streets policies?
Well, I think that the easiest one, and it's worked with the Sustainable Jersey program, is you see what's going on in the town next to you and how well it's working. And so now that we're seeing all these communities across the state really go all in on complete streets, other towns and visitors, and they're seeing this and they're saying, why can't I have it too? And then they attend things like this, and we can show them where the resources are.
If I could just jump in on that as well. I think that's a common theme that often happens, is that, as we all know, communities are often resistant to change. And so sometimes, we've had this experience in the past with road diets where a community might say, we're concerned about this. It's going to add to congestion. It's going to be bad for business and so on. And we've had numerous examples of when we actually put it in, that given a little bit of time, the experience that turns around, the community really finds that it's a great success. So I think that's something that we can see if over time, that we have a lot of opportunity to learn from each other, as Elise is saying.
And I would add, I think the most powerful thing you can do is to take the naysayers on a walk. Because there's nothing like feet on the ground and that real world experience to demonstrate exactly what you're talking about. Invite them for a walk. If they're bicyclists, invite them on their bikes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, take your county engineer for a bike ride.
Right.
Michigan DOT actually had a program where they had the designing engineers ride their bikes through project areas so that they would understand what the issues that bicyclists face really are. And I'm not saying, don't worry, engineers at DOT, I'm not saying we're going to do that, but I think it's a really eye-opening concept.
We just had Mayor Taglier from Eatontown do a session exactly on this, walking through their town. And he brought in, what was really great about his talk was that he brought in a lot of different parts and departments from the community. So people in the health department, people from the fire department and the police and the senior citizen group, and got everybody to go on a walk, exactly like you're talking about, Tara. And he said it was really effective in as part of bringing together a group. So then some of the representatives from these different parts of the community and the town government began to meet together to talk about complete streets. And we actually have a recording of that if anybody wants to hear the whole full explanation, which is on our website under resources for this new pedestrian and bicycle advocacy network. So we recorded it and anybody can just go in and hear.
Yeah.
It was a great example of exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah, and one of the projects that I'm not sure we're really going to get to today, but Route 130 in Burlington City, where the high school students mobilized to come up with design solutions and legislative solutions to the problem of speeding traffic on their route to school. And we had NJDOT engineers come and walk with students as they traveled from school to home one afternoon. And that was really amazing. It didn't just open the eyes of the engineers, but the kids got to see what kind of questions professionals ask and what the obstacles they face when they try to fix these issues. And it was a really good discussion between two very different groups of people that resulted in a road diet.
Yeah, I think the idea of breaking down the silos and you know, having people work together more is just, it's fabulous. And being out there and experiencing it is one of the best ways to do that. I have a question that came in about, does Complete Streets take into account all of the new electric vehicle or other types of vehicles, including cars, bikes, scooters, golf carts, and skateboards? Does anyone want to comment on those other types of mobility features and micromobility?
I was literally typing an answer to that. So
oh, good.
Stopped. And the answer is yes, and we can always do better. The Complete Streets policy is a dynamic document. It is meant to grow and evolve as our mobility options and our mobility needs change, whether it's from the pandemic or technology. In terms of charging infrastructure, that is a combination of both how we design our roads, but also development and zoning requirements in the town. Scooters and skateboards and the like all benefit from bike lanes, sidewalks, crosswalks, and traffic calming. So the answer is yes, and always welcoming the opportunity to strengthen the policies.
Great,
I
thanks.
just feel like the main piece about Complete Streets is it's really context sensitive too. So, you know, much in the way that, you know, you apply a complete street concept a little bit differently from one roadway corridor to the next, you know, you can apply it a little differently from one community to the next. So if you have additional issues that you don't necessarily see represented in a model policy or in your neighboring town's policy that you think are important to you, you can absolutely add those. And should.
One final quick question before we're out of time. What advice do you have for communities or organizations looking to get to 0 deaths on our roads?
Wow. I think advice is make sure your voices are being heard at the municipal level, the county level, the state level. If there's projects coming in, if developers are coming in where the transportation network needs to change and there's an opportunity to change it, we really need to hear from the people affected by those roadways. And if you don't stand up and speak your truth to all these different agencies, they will not hear you. So please come out to public meetings. Please come to committee meetings. I know it's a lot of effort these days to get to these. I mean, we're going back to in-person now, but hearing people's voices is so important. So please speak up.
Thank you. And we're gonna let Elise have the last word because we are out of time. What we're hoping to do is any unanswered questions that have come in, we're hoping to have a little, we'll address them and try to get back to you as soon as we can. But unfortunately, I am tasked with sticking to time. So we're gonna have the final bike bell right now. Thank you all for all of your questions, and a big thank you to our excellent panelists today. I learned a lot and I hope you did too. And as a reminder, all sessions are recorded and will be available post-summit on the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center YouTube channel. If we did not have time to get to your question, please see the handouts on the session page on the Summit website for information about how to follow up directly with panelists. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you at the next session.
Thanks, everybody.